Hello.
Our story begins inside the Jedi Temple Communications Room. The Jedi were gathered around as a transmission came through. It was a Republic broadcast system.
You're listening to the Grand Army of the Republic broadcast, the voice of the Outer Rim.
The recording continued. It was Raid Shadow Legends. The Jedi listened in. They never heard of it. If you like challenges or taking down the Dark Lord of the Sith, this game is for you.
Like a panther.
There's an assortment of collectible champions, 15 awesome factions, 12 dungeons that are more dangerous than Sidious's lair,
Yow, yow.
alongside endless customization and millions of players to join up with. The Jedi in the room were left in shock. There was a brand new rarity, the mythical level. These awesome champions are basically 2-in-1 and are also the most versatile champions Raid has ever seen. Once you've downloaded Raid from either Android or Apple, you'll have the opportunity to collect Sun Wukong, the newest free champion. All you have to do is log in within 7 days of joining between August 22nd and October 23rd, and you'll have your hands on someone as mischievous as Hondo.
I smell profit.
So click the link down below and use my promo code JTSKIN to get a hold of the Stag King with a custom skin made by JonTron himself. This will last until October 7th for all new players. And for new players to Raid, don't forget about the starter pack that comes with $30 worth of supplies to make sure you're ready to get into the action. Obi-Wan looked at the other Jedi. They shrugged and collectively turned back as another hologram popped up on the other side of the table. Ahsoka Tano came through. Obi-Wan took a deep breath. He wished he hadn't told Anakin to leave yet. Skywalker was on his way to inform the Chancellor about Mace Windu's engagement with General Grievous on Utapau. Anakin wasn't as upset as he would have been had Obi-Wan been sent there without him. Skywalker knew Mace Windu would likely crush Grievous, but they weren't super close as it was anyways. Anakin would worry a lot more about Obi-Wan's safety rather than Mace Windu's, simply because Kenobi was his master. Regardless, Obi-Wan told Ahsoka that he was sorry, she just missed Anakin. She paused for a moment. The last time they spoke, Kenobi told her about Anakin's special assignment. At that time, Kenobi was under the belief that he was being sent to Utapau. Ahsoka was troubled by an attack, and then she had to go, which left her to ask Obi-Wan to tell Anakin what she wanted him to hear. Kenobi had already shared those kind words of encouragement to his student. Anakin was very appreciative. Obi-Wan asked Ahsoka how she was doing, and she informed him that things were well. They had captured Maul, and the Mandalorian War was seemingly coming to an end. Obi-Wan and Yoda, who were two of the main members of the council, still standing on the hologram call, could feel that there was something else. Ki-Adi-Mundi had to leave because the battle Megiddo was heating up, and he had to get into the action immediately. Aayla Secura, who served with Ahsoka before, had to leave as she was taking her men to the front lines. The Battle of Felucia was about to begin. Yoda spoke before Obi-Wan could, asking Ahsoka if there was something more on her mind. Ahsoka looked at the two Jedi for a moment. She couldn't figure out if she wanted to say it or not. The issue was that she didn't want Anakin to get put under any more scrutiny. Obi-Wan believed it was a relation to Maul and asked Ahsoka if it was something that Maul said. She nodded her head hesitantly. Kenobi looked over at Yoda and then they both turned to Ahsoka as the words left her mouth. She tried to search for the right words to say. She said that Maul had some concerning notions about Anakin and she wanted to make sure that he was safe. The two masters stood idly waiting for her to say what it was. She said that Maul believed Anakin wasn't meant to bring balance to the Force. He was meant to destroy it. The two Jedi looked confusedly, and then Ahsoka told them that Maul was under the belief that Anakin was being groomed to become the Sith apprentice. Ahsoka expressed that she wasn't exactly believing of it, but since the two of them were there, she didn't want to pass up on the opportunity to tell them. Hopefully Obi-Wan could tell Anakin about this, or at least keep an eye on him to make sure he was safe. Yoda looked to Obi-Wan and suggested that they keep an eye on Skywalker for the time being. Obi-Wan turned back towards Ahsoka and responded with a question of a statement that she made. He rubbed his beard as he asked if she said that Anakin had long been groomed for it. Ahsoka nodded her head. She stopped and thought for a moment about what to say, or what it was that Maul said to her inside the throne room. She said that Maul mentioned him being the key to everything and being someone that Sidious was grooming. There wasn't a whole lot more than that, other than Maul orchestrating the entire thing to bring Anakin to Mandalore to kill him. Yoda looked at Obi-Wan. He was much more versed with interacting with Maul. Kenobi opened his mouth, and nothing but air came out. He told them that while Maul wasn't exactly trustworthy, they couldn't deny the severity of his accusations. Yoda waited for the point, and Ahsoka looked at Obi-Wan with an underlying worry in her eyes. He told them that Maul had just moved on from being a grunt. He was now trying to establish himself as a threat to Darth Sidious. There had to be some truth in the argument. Obi-Wan didn't want to assume the worst, but there were few people in the galaxy close enough to Anakin to effectively groom him. One of those people was indeed the Chancellor. Ahsoka was caught up on all the information in regards to the investigation of Palpatine, but Obi-Wan didn't want to just outright assume it could be the Chancellor. Plus, Anakin was kind of with Palpatine at the moment. It would be counterproductive to accuse him of being the Sith Lord while Anakin was over there. Ahsoka saw the look in Obi-Wan's face and she said that he knew who it was. He shook his head, expressing that it was nothing more than a theory based off of the only person who could have groomed Anakin. Ahsoka stopped him. She almost got angry with Kenobi, saying that he'd been foolish to send Anakin to spy on Palpatine and then accuse him of being the Sith Lord. Her brows tightened and she firmed her stance, crossing her arms. She said she never should have said anything about it. The Jedi were far too corrupt for their own good, and she was tired of seeing people neglected and the people Anakin cared about being targeted. Obi-Wan didn't appreciate it, but he wasn't really concerned with the attitude. He was more so worried about Anakin in the moment. Ahsoka ended her transmission with a flip and turned towards Rex and began venting about it. She expressed everything she could without unveiling everything else, not like she didn't already. On the other hand, the two Jedi started talking with each other. Obi-Wan told Yoda that there were some valid points there, but something needed to be done. He asked Yoda what he should do if Palpatine was indeed the Sith Lord. Yoda thought for a moment and then asked how certain Obi-Wan was that he could indeed be the Sith Lord. Obi-Wan suggested that it was very high. Yoda pondered over why, and Obi-Wan filled him in certain moments throughout the training of Anakin Skywalker. The first and probably most notable one was when Anakin and Palpatine went on a secret mission together when Anakin was just a young boy. And when Anakin came back, he told Obi-Wan that he wanted to lead the Jedi Order. It came out of nowhere, and while Anakin wasn't always happy with the Jedi Order, it wasn't something he ever vocally said. Of course, Obi-Wan told Yoda that he didn't believe it was a coincidence either. He carried on from there and suggested that over the years after that incident, Anakin was requested to the Chancellor's office multiple times. Obi-Wan allowed it because he didn't want Anakin to feel like he couldn't have friends outside the Order. Each time Anakin came back from the Chancellor's meetings, his ego was always seemingly filled. Obi-Wan admitted that as Anakin reached the high end of his training, he would typically challenge Obi-Wan to spars after he'd been to the Chancellor's office. Each spar would be intense, much more intense than usual, something even Professor Huyang would mention to Obi-Wan if he happened to be inside the temple to see it. Yoda took a deep breath. He thought for a moment and told Obi-Wan that if Sidious was the Sith Lord, he needed to be prepared. Obi-Wan asked if the Sith were capable of something truly horrible, and Yoda didn't know. But if he was able to groom Skywalker for so long, then perhaps it would be best to have a backup plan. Obi-Wan admitted that he wasn't the Master of the Order, or even the Battle Master. He couldn't just take command of the temple, especially not with Shak Ti, Coleman, Saesee, Agan, and Kit Fisto around. Yoda told Obi-Wan that if it came to it, he could do it. For the time being, he would try to reroute Master Plo back to Coruscant, though that was uncertain at the moment. He told Obi-Wan that he wished the Force would be with him, and Obi-Wan wished the same for the Grand Master as the transmission cut. Obi-Wan stood in the briefing room alone. There was calm chatter coming in and out, but now he had to think of what he had to do. Yoda wasn't being unhelpful intentionally, he just wasn't under the belief that Sidious could be the Chancellor. It didn't seem feasible. At the same time, the Jedi didn't really have too many evacuation orders, not like the Sith had some means to wipe them all out at once. The concept of Order 66 or anything of that brilliant magnitude wasn't even a thought. It wasn't realistic to think about. How could the Sith be in control of everything and wage a war on themselves? Didn't make sense. It defeated the purpose of what the Jedi knew the Sith to be. If they were able to grow beyond the determination to conquest over each other, then it was possible. But no one believed it was, especially with how quickly Sidious seemingly moved on from Maul to Dooku. Obi-Wan stood silently pondering over his options as the minutes passed by. New transmissions would come in and out, and some Jedi generals would join before leaving and going to their rooms or whatnot. Obi-Wan was the only consistent face in the chambers. That was until a new hologram popped up. It was Master of the Order, Mace Windu. There was char on his robes, as could be seen through the hologram. He informed the members of the briefing room that he was successful in destroying General Grievous. He then turned to Master Kenobi and asked him if there was any word from the Chancellor. Kenobi told the Master of the Order that Anakin had just been sent to inform him of the engagement between Windu and Grievous. It was obviously several minutes before when the clone commander reported it in about Windu engaging Grievous, but the main point being is that Anakin wasn't here at the moment. Mace asked Obi-Wan what it was that was on his mind. He could feel the thoughts from Utapau. Obi-Wan's calm, collected nature was what got Windu to notice because he wasn't calm and he was filled with anxieties. Master Kenobi informed Mace of everything that had been said earlier, and Windu told Kenobi that he should have faith in Anakin. It was the same thing Mace said to Obi-Wan when Anakin went on a mission to protect Padme nearly 3 years beforehand. Obi-Wan told Mace that he didn't know what to do if Sidious was the Chancellor, and Windu encouraged Obi-Wan. He reminded Obi-Wan to trust the will of the Force. He would know what the right plan of action was. Obi-Wan thanked Windu and watched as the hologram ended. Shortly after, Anakin came running into the room. Obi-Wan turned around and he could see the difference in Anakin's face. He said that Palpatine was the Sith Lord. Obi-Wan's heart dropped to the bottom of his stomach. Obi-Wan asked Anakin to repeat what he had just said, and he told his master that Palpatine was the Sith Lord, the one they'd been looking for. Obi-Wan asked Anakin to walk with him for a moment. He told his former student that he was proud of him. Anakin was a little confused by this direction as he tried to speak up, but he was silenced. Obi-Wan told Anakin that he was sorry for having to put Anakin into the position he was in, but now he needed to know everything. Anakin looked around the halls as Obi-Wan said it. The halls were pretty much empty. Kenobi stopped and he nodded his head. He requested that Anakin tell him everything. They couldn't keep hiding things from each other. Obi-Wan needed to know everything before he made any decisions. Anakin took a deep breath and told Obi-Wan through a struggle of words.
Well, Master, you see, Padme and I, well, we're married.
Anakin, I knew that. Tell me everything else.
Wait, what? Who told you?
Anakin.
Right. Well, anyways, she's kind of pregnant.
Obi-Wan stopped for a moment. The words seeped into his head. Well, congratulations were surely in order, but this was kind of an issue. He asked if Palpatine knew, and Anakin nodded his head. Obi-Wan thought. He looked around. The weight of the order fell onto him. He asked Anakin if there was anything else. He shook his head. Sure, there were nightmares, but at the moment, all that really mattered was the fact that Sidious was Palpatine and the Sith had complete control over the Galactic Senate. Obi-Wan perked up. He had an idea. He put his hand on Anakin's shoulder and asked him a question.
Anakin, I need to know. Do you trust me?
Master, you know I trust you with my life.
Obi-Wan smiled at his student and patted his shoulder a couple of times. He told Anakin that they needed to act quickly. He was going to lock down the Jedi Temple. Anakin asked if that was reasonable, and Obi-Wan nodded his head. Kenobi then told Anakin, very sincerely, that he was going to go with Shakti to pick up Padme and bring her back to the temple. Obi-Wan then continued and told Anakin that Padme be put in Obi-Wan's room for the time being. There was a brief look of confusion on Anakin's face, but the way Obi-Wan looked at him, he understood. Obi-Wan was doing this so that it didn't draw any attention to Skywalker. It would allow Padme to be safe, the Jedi to remain safe, and for Anakin to be safe. These were the primary concerns at the moment. Obi-Wan took his hand off of Anakin's shoulders and told him that regardless of his decisions in life, he'd always be proud of him. Anakin smiled and thanked Obi-Wan for his kindness. Kenobi, before turning away, asked Anakin to think about any potential threats Palpatine could use against the Jedi or the Republic. Anakin nodded his head as his master turned back and started running. Anakin made his way for the council chambers. He just needed to relax, and it would be a good place to be for the time being. After all, as Obi-Wan said before, it is what he wanted. He wanted to be on the High Council. For Anakin, being in the council chambers would allow him to have some peace, some space. It was a bad idea to go up there because it left him vulnerable to Palpatine's attacks through the Force. When Sindralik was ordered to shut down the temple and not let anyone in, and Obi-Wan and Shakti picked up Padme, Anakin couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of dread. He couldn't keep himself in his seat as he got up and began pacing around the room. He knew he couldn't leave. It'd be a bad idea to do so. As Anakin was walking around the room, the doors opened behind him. It was Jedi Master Kit Fisto. He smiled at Anakin and asked how he was doing. Anakin gave a brief reply which wasn't too audible, before Fisto asked why the temple was being locked down. Anakin didn't realize that Kenobi didn't make it clear to everyone on the council what was happening. All they knew is Sindralik was given orders to put the temple under lockdown. Skywalker caught him up on everything before Fisto took a seat and took the information in. Initially, he didn't believe Anakin, but the sincerity from his voice made him realize that it was true. Skywalker was also thinking back on anything that could be used, and then he remembered something that made his skin crawl and sent shivers down his spine. Shakti and Obi-Wan were able to pick up Padme without any struggles, and the excuse Obi-Wan gave to both Shakti and Padme is that there were reports that there was a target on her head. They had to keep her safe from these assassins. They both bought the bait, and she was quickly and discreetly transported across the city to the lockdown Jedi Temple. When Obi-Wan and Shakti arrived, Shakti offered her room to Padme, which made the predicament even better in Obi-Wan's opinion. As they got to the halls, Anakin came running at Obi-Wan like a bat out of hell. He gave a brief hello to Master Shakti and Senator Amidala before requesting to speak to Obi-Wan alone. Kenobi was ready, and he asked his former student what it was. He told his former master that there could be a plot. It was a couple months old, but it could have something to do with this. Anakin didn't understand why he hadn't thought of it sooner. He asked Obi-Wan if he remembered the Battle of Ringo Vinda and the events circulating around the death of Master Tiplar. Obi-Wan kind of nodded his head as he asked what Anakin was getting at. Skywalker said that Tup and Fives had their inhibitor chips removed, and Fives said that Palpatine was in on it. Obi-Wan nodded his head, and Anakin continued. He theorized he wasn't sure if he was correct or not, but it was entirely possible that the clone troopers where Obi-Wan cut Anakin off. Terror filled his face, and before Skywalker could finish a word or ask a question, Obi-Wan ran. Skywalker watched as Obi-Wan booked it through the hallways before following his master. He called out to Obi-Wan asking where he was going, and he told his student that he needed to get to the archives. When Obi-Wan got there, he slid across the marble floors and ran into a chain of shelves. He looked around, catching his breath as he did. He pressed a small button and Anakin caught up with him. He asked what it was, as Kenobi told Anakin to stand back. He prepared himself and then spoke up.
This is Master Obi Wan Kenobi. I'm sending this message out to every Jedi across the galaxy. We are under the belief that there is a plot to destroy the Jedi. This is a direct order that must be followed. Evacuate yourselves and your students from any active battlefront. Do not tell your troopers where you are going. If you cannot make it back to the temple, find safe refuge wherever you can. Remain hidden until it is confirmed that everything is okay. May the Force be with you all.
Anakin asked if he thought that would be enough. Obi-Wan turned back to Anakin, and he said that he hoped it would be enough. The two of them started walking out as JTSKIN came around the corner, asking what Obi-Wan was doing. It was getting chaotic. The temple was locked down, and every single Jedi just received that transmission. Obi-Wan told her that he was ensuring the survival of their order. She asked what was the matter of all of this, and he told her that it was Palpatine. He was the Sith Lord behind everything. If he had the power to take over the Republic, then surely he could take over the Jedi and wipe them out. Across the galaxy, Jedi began to receive their messages. It was difficult for them truthfully. Most of them were actively fighting alongside their clone brethren. But, as is their orders, they directed their men forward, changed the chain of command, and abandoned post as directed. Some Jedi were able to use their ships to escape, others did whatever they could to get out of harm's way. If what Kenobi said was true, then they needed to vacate their collective locations immediately. For Jedi like Windu, Mundi, and Yoda, it was especially weird, but they trusted Obi-Wan's judgment on the situation. As the Jedi relocated themselves, Sidious sat in his office patiently. He was genuinely surprised the Jedi hadn't shown up yet. He was planning on their arrival, beating them and then turning Skywalker before executing Order 66. Though he was just switching between plans. If nothing came of the next hour, then he would execute Order 66. At the same time, there were a couple of local bounty hunters going out to Padme's residence to remove her from the picture. It was just an assurance plan. He wanted Skywalker to feel like she was in danger. Truthfully, Sidious assumed that the Jedi hadn't shown up because Anakin went to Padme's residence rather than the Jedi Temple. He sent the bounty hunters so Skywalker could find some reason to take his anger out on someone. Sidious believed his backup plan would actually go as such. The Jedi had no clue of Order 66, Anakin was at Padme's, and he just killed a number of bounty hunters. Anakin would become paranoid, come back to Palpatine, and in that time, he would tell Anakin that it was happening to every senator. It seemed the Jedi were trying to take over. In his confusion, Skywalker would join forces with Palpatine. Sidious believed the bounty hunter plan would come and go within the next hour as well, which is why he gave himself the extra time. He of course hadn't counted on none of that working out in his favor, but he had another plan, which was just straight up executing Order 66. It would all work out in his favor in the end, and that's all that mattered to him, regardless of how it was done. As long as the Jedi died, then he'd be alright. As Sidious was brilliantly enjoying his seemingly flawless plan of execution, a Venator would arrive outside of Coruscant. Ahsoka hadn't gotten a message from the temple due to her being the rank of citizen, self-proclaimed of course. She sent a transmission to the temple to inform them that Maul was in transit to the temple. Kenobi answered and requested that she and Maul come alone. This was odd, but sure, she'd play Obi-Wan's little game. She wasn't happy with him at the moment, but fine, let's just do it this way and get it over with. No biggie. Doesn't need to be a big deal. As she entered the shuttle and departed for the surface, she saw a blue Jedi starfighter exit hyperspace. That was weird. That was Master Plo Koon. What was he doing back from Cato Nemodia? Plo flew down to the surface, and behind him a couple of other Jedi starfighters exited hyperspace and did the same thing. This was really peculiar, but Ahsoka piloted the shuttle down to the Jedi Temple and was given permission to land, as the hangar bay filled up with Jedi starfighters and countless Padawans, Knights, and Masters. Something odd was happening here. When Ahsoka left the ship, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Kit Fisto were there to greet her. They quickly had Maul transported to the heart of the temple, and they told her to stay here inside the temple for the time being. She wasn't exactly on board with it, but once the hangar bay doors closed behind her, it was clear that she didn't really have a choice in the matter. She asked what was going on, and Anakin filled her in on everything. At the same time of this conversation, Obi-Wan was doing the same thing with Plo Koon, who was now the eldest member of the Order present on planet. While Plo was considering his options, Ahsoka and Anakin devised their own plan. The Master and Apprentice duo were always good at solving issues in a quick manner, and they were doing that right here. Ahsoka ran over to the two Jedi and told them that they could bring Rex to the temple. Anakin came over too and told them that since Appa was here, it wouldn't be a big deal. Plo and Kenobi looked at each other and agreed, telling her to do it quickly. Within the next 20 minutes, Rex would be brought down to the Jedi Temple and be accompanied to the medical facility. The plan was stressful. Of course, they were worried about Rex's survival. But with Rex being able to be kept safe inside the temple, there wasn't too much concern about his survival. Ahsoka explained the plan once more as Rex was sedated and put onto the table. On his sides were Plo Koon, Obi-Wan, and Shaak Ti. They gathered up and placed their hands on Rex. The medical device didn't detect anything, but the Jedi prepared as they synchronized themselves in saying, "I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me." They repeated it as Skywalker and Ahsoka looked on in curiosity. Moments later, the device began beeping and Rex was sent into the tube as it dissected the inhibitor chip from his head. When Rex came out, he was still unconscious. Plo picked up the device and looked at it. He turned to Ahsoka and asked her to reiterate the next part of her plan. She told him, and then he placed it on the table near, and an analysis droid came up to it and began scanning it. As it began scanning it, Palpatine's patience wore out. The bounty hunters reported that Padme wasn't in her residence, so Palpatine decided that he might as well change the plan up now, sooner than later that is. He quickly pulled together the executive orders and sent out Order 66 around the galaxy. Sidious sat in silence. It was brilliant. Everything was going according to his plans. For several minutes, he would await word back from the Jedi Temple that had been overrun, but it never came. Even weirder was the balance in the Force that hadn't been disrupted. There was still death, but not to the degree that he initially hoped. This is when he got the call. The Jedi Temple was locked down. The clones couldn't get in. They were requesting reinforcements, and Sidious snarled. He could not believe it. The Jedi figured it out. How was that possible? Aside from his revelation to Skywalker, he didn't expect them to go and figure out his plans. Not that they would know about Order 66 or anything. Sidious looked out the window and came up with a plan. He told the clones to vacate the temple grounds. They would bombard the Jedi Temple into extinction. The Venators were called upon, and they descended down into the city skyline. Inside of the temple, Master JTSKIN came running into the medical bay. Rex was awake, but the Jedi didn't make any progress. They were trying to get into the inhibitor chip and figure out what it had inside of it. He called out with a panic in his voice, telling them that the Republic was here. Everyone but Plo looked over at him and asked what he meant. He said that 3 capital ships were getting in the firing range. They were going to blow the temple up. Obi-Wan almost panicked. He then turned over to Plo, who waved his hand over. He requested that every Jedi in the room focus on Plo and then onto the inhibitor chip. It was too late to evacuate. They needed to get this right. If they didn't, then they would lose everything. The panic that was initially in the room vanished as they collectively came together. They siphoned through the inhibitor chip. Ahsoka, Anakin, Saci, Shaak Ti, Kit Fisto, Coleman Kaj, Jocasta Nu, Plo Koon, Obi-Wan, Agan Kolar, and Tara Sunube together. They came together in one moment to find what could save them all. Time slowed down for a moment, and they came to the answer. The words collectively came out of their mouths as Rex watched in awe. No clone would ever likely see something like that ever again. Plo turned around and rushed forward. The Jedi collectively moved with him as they abandoned the medical room. People cleared the hallways as a group of Jedi sped to the communication room. Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Plo were the first to the table as they got to different locations, trying to find a frequency to get a hold of the Venators. They reached out, but that wasn't going to work. It wasn't that easy, was it? It seemed like the ships were blocking all transmission from the Jedi Temple. The Jedi panicked. Obi-Wan asked if they knew whose flagship it was. No one knew. Plo Koon looked through the device to try and figure out how to get a hold of them. Ahsoka came up to the table and looked at the communication frequency. She noticed an irregularity. One of the gunner towers had their communications open. It wasn't intentional, the trooper just wasn't at his station when the orders were given to shut down all frequencies. The Jedi contacted it, and the clone trooper answered. He was confused why these traitors were calling him. Plo answered and told the clone that he was Jedi General Plo Koon. He was cut off. Obi-Wan nodded his head at Plo, who cut off the clone. Plo simply said, "Execute Order 65. The clone snapped. Order 66 was replaced with 65, and he realized that the true traitor to the Republic was indeed the Chancellor. However, it seemed as if it was too late. The ground began to rumble as the sound of the Venators' cannons exploded from the skies. Plo demanded the trooper connect them to the bridge. As he did, the deck officer stopped the bombardment to see what the Jedi wanted to say. More or less, he was hoping the Jedi would make it easier for them by lowering their defenses and leaving the temple to become cannon fodder. The defenses were strong, but it wouldn't take more than a couple minutes to obliterate the entire temple. The deck officer demanded to know what the Jedi wanted, and Plo said the same thing. Execute Order 65. The clone stopped everything and realized that what they had done was wrong. They had to reroute to the Chancellor's office. He called out to the other 3 Venators and relayed the order. All troopers were being sent to the Republic Executive Building to kill the Chancellor for treason against the Galactic Republic. The Jedi inside the temple didn't stop there because they had to make sure this order was received by the clones on Coruscant. Commander Appo and Commander Fox both received the change of orders as they turned their attention to the Chancellor, the true enemy of the Republic. The Jedi continued to bunker down for the night. While they were hit with the bombardment, they had to put out a couple of fires on the roof of the temple. Inside the Republic Executive Building, Sidious was in for a surprise as he turned and looked at a group of clone troopers who ran into the room. He asked them why they were here, and they raised their weapons and began to open fire. He was under arrest for treason against the Republic. Sidious leapt up and shot lightning from his fingers, erasing the troopers from existence. Sidious pulled his lightsabers into his hands and looked around. He could hear clones calling out orders to each other. The Chancellor was armed and dangerous. The Dark Lord was furious. How could this happen? The clones ran into the room and they were quickly cut down. Sidious launched himself at them, his lightsaber moved with fury as clones were left in terror. They didn't have anything they could use effectively against the Sith Lord. LAATs eventually came around the corner of the building and began launching rockets at the room. Sidious was so effective with his speed that the rockets were directed back at the LAATs as they dropped from the skies. Sidious was clipped in the shoulder by Commander Fox, who came in as he turned around. Sidious whipped back around and force-choked the commander and pulled him into his lightsaber. The clones continued to pull into the room as they mounted up against the Sith Lord. With holes in the walls and openings in the windows, he was exposed. He knew that he had to vacate, but that wasn't an option. The capital ship opened up its Fa cannon attached to the bottom of the vessel and targeted Palpatine's office. There may have been collateral damage, but it would be better than risking more troops. Plus, it was accurate. The blast eviscerated Palpatine in an instant. The blast did cut through the building for the most part, but there were no sentient casualties from the blast. Confusion erupted across the Republic as senators watched the clones attack both the Jedi and the Republic. It was terrifying, but quickly the situation was handled by Masters Plo Koon, Shaak Ti, and Obi Wan. At the same time, Anakin and Padme went from the Jedi Temple to the Republic medical facility. The stress of the bombardment forced her into labor, but by the time they got to the medical facility, everything was alright. The senators rallied to the Senate as the news broke out about what happened. It was a very arduous process, but because the Jedi were attacked first, they were legitimately seen as victims of a plot. If it had been done in any other form, they would have been seen as the enemy. Without Palpatine here to convince the Senate that the Jedi were bad or something, they were able to, for the most part, get off scot-free. The assistance of the clone troopers and the testimony from Rex about the inhibitor chips turned all the attention from the attack on the Jedi to the Kaminoans. The plot was much thicker than anyone realized, and as the investigation began, the Kaminoans, like Dooku and Palpatine, were seen as the real villains of the Clone Wars, as everything that was set in place was undone. The war was able to come to a conclusion, and because of Windu's swift strike on Utapau, the Separatist Council was captured and en route to Coruscant. The coming months would see a lot of change within the Order. While Order 66 did have some ramifications, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. About 100 Jedi died from the Order, but collectively, the Jedi Order made changes for the better. They were still loosely connected to the Galactic Senate, but with Chancellor Ryo Chuchi taking the mantle of the Republic, they could effectively back away. Most of the Council, especially those on Coruscant during the siege of the Temple, decided that it'd be better to back away anyways. Skywalker left the Order, and Padme left the Senate. Because Ahsoka was with them when Padme went to labor, she was welcome to join them on their estate on Naboo. Ahsoka accepted and became a member of the family, as Luke and Leia's aunt. Obi-Wan, on the other hand, came out and joined them on their small housewarming party months later, featuring Mon Mothma, Ryo Chuchi, Plo Koon, Yoda, Rex, Bail Organa, and Padme's family, of course. The celebration was very warming, and those who stood on the Jedi Order expressed their happiness for Anakin. His actions saved the Order, and the actions of his student led to the capture of the last Sith, Darth Maul. Obi-Wan took on a new apprentice in his own life to continue the lineage of Jedi through his own master. The Order itself began taking advantage of the new stance in the Republic, and Ryo supported their motives. Yoda laid out a set of plans reflecting what had been done during the Starlight Beacon era from the High Republic. The interest was to expand into the Outer Rim and assist people out there. Yoda, after setting forth this motion, stepped down from the High Council and became a member of the Order, rather than the Council. In his place, the Council elected Plo Koon to become the new Grand Master, which he took on with great grace and pride. He would lead the Order into a new era. On Naboo, Luke and Leia would be trained in the Force by their father, but inevitably both would be like their mother. Leia would become the Queen of Naboo at 14 like her mother, while Luke would eventually become the representative for Naboo under Senator Binks. That is until he became the senator of the planet eventually. Ahsoka would bounce on and off world from time to time, but she was always solidified as a member of the family. And that, my friends, is our story. Again, special thanks to Galvin Gaming, Tristan, Darth Revan, Pimp Daddy Bane, The Last Jedi, Apollo, Weewoo 670, Rai 700, Darth Nox, The Eternal Padawan, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Mathematic Studios, Anakin 003, Fordo's Legacy Star Wars, Lemon Knight, Rex the Wolf, Man of Three First Names, Dark Saint 46, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing for supporting the channel. Smash that like button if you want to support me in other ways. Go check out the Patreon. There's tons of cool things, updates, and all the stuff there, like the Sith Clone Wars on the Patreon. Otherwise, that list can get longer. Anyways, let's talk about the story. So this one is a little bit different than the other two, and that's obviously the Plo and the Ki-Adi-Mundi one were much different. I want this one to focus a lot on the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and let that kind of flourish. I wanted Obi-Wan to be much more calm and collected, and maybe a little too nervous to actually go forward. In Revenge of the Sith, he said, "Go, let me fight the Emperor." I don't think he would feel that way. Without an emotional reason to go and fight Palpatine, I don't think he would risk it, because I don't think he would think he was strong enough to do that. I just don't think that's where his mind would be. So I think he would reasonably be like, yeah, let's be as safe with this as possible. And that's kind of why I went that direction. Plus, if you got Anakin and Padme safe, then you're kind of winning. So that's kind of the whole point of that. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.